It's important to think about reputation today and talk about it today, because reputation is the primary thing that unites all stakeholders, general publics, audiences about an organization. It's the one thing that they can all talk about. It's the one thing that they understand. They may not understand its financial performance. They might not understand everything on the balance sheet, but everybody can understand when you're talking about a company's reputation, you're talking about who they are as an organization, their identity. And so reputation in that sense enables people to feel like they know who that organization is and whether or not they want to engage with that organization at all. I would say the main challenges that organizations are facing in the area, or larger question about reputation, is simply knowing how to turn messages about their reputation into meaningful feedback and to distinguish between feedback and noise. And so our job as communicators or leaders of organizations is to properly classify those messages so that we extract the right feedback and minimize noise and distortion from the process as much as we can. So the idea of thinking about reputation as a message, or I should say it's a meta message, right? It's an accumulation of all the messages about who that organization is, right? So it's the idea of it's what people say about an organization. It's not just what they think. And the reason that's important is because people don't always say what they think, and they don't always think what they say. And probably is a bigger issue, some people just don't know what they think until they hear what they have to say. So if we think about what is publicly shared, right, then we're able to derive meaningful feedback about organizations. Well, for me, reputation is what people outside the organization say who the organization is. And who the organization is what we typically think about being the identity of an organization. The identity of an organization usually starts with an organization's core values, its mission, its reason for being. And often that is not only declared or decided, sometimes that's detected as they fulfill a sense of mission. And so reputation is the outsider perspective of that. So reputation and identity are linked because it provides the way for people outside the organization to best understand who the organization is. Tonight we talked about reputation having a multi-level component. And so the idea here is that many people in global organizations are concerned about some organizations that operate in multiple countries, or being able to compare companies that operate in Spain from the ones that operate in Italy or South America. And so we need some comparative basis for understanding organizations in their natural environment. So in terms of this multi-level model, it's based on data that we have that provides meaningful feedback for comparing organizations across all levels. Now, these 5 levels are important because some are within individuals' control and others are just outside of individual control altogether. So briefly, at the highest level, we can think about reputation having a socio-economic, geopolitical component, which is partially tied to the degree of trust in institutions that various societies have. So when we think about South America, or in some places in Southern Europe, we can say, okay, well, there are lower degrees of trust in institutions. But in Scandinavia, the research across countries shows that on the whole, they have a higher degree of trust in institutions, which means there might be less skepticism or more likely to give companies the benefit of the doubt, right? So that kind of introduces the idea that there is this geopolitical, socio-economic component that is tied to the nation state. Then the next level is kind of outside the organization. It's external to the organization, and it concerns everything from the economic environment of the moment to technology to the industry that they're operating in. So it's largely the rapidly changing environment in which it operates, right? In which we could also say it and its competitors share in common. Then the third level is the organization itself. But when I'm thinking about the organization here, I'm partially thinking about the identity, but I'm not thinking about its performance yet. I'm just thinking about who the identity is, and that's partially determined by its age, its size, various demographic characteristics that are largely outside of their control once they're set in motion. Okay? Now, the reason why that's important is because we want to distinguish the demographic characteristics, which are outside of the hands of any one individual, from both the behavior of the organization, okay, and also from the behavior of individual people working in the organization or outside the organization. So the third level, the middle level, is focused on the organization. It's partially identity-based, characteristics that help define who the organization is. And then the fourth is focused on the idea of routines, and that's largely a question of mundane management, the degree that organizations manage their intellectual capital, their skills, their habits, their routines, and it's really about behavior, their performance on an ongoing basis, and the degree that they have consistent versus erratic behavior. But the fifth level, the bottom, focuses on individuals as people. And the basic idea is that often we will judge an organization based on the performance of one person, but at the same time, change occurs because individuals decide to introduce change in some capacity. It might be as individuals or as a group of people, but somebody somewhere is making a decision to confront an organization, to lead change within the organization in terms of its behavior or its performance. So somebody's making decisions and somebody has to account for that behavior. And by dissecting reputation in terms of these 5 different levels, then we can begin seeing the degree of influence that stakeholders have and individual actions by organizations impact their reputations versus just what is a part of the geopolitical environment or the state of society today.